When we tell ourselves a story often enough, whether it be this is how I love, this is how I fail, this is how I move through the world, the mind doesn't question the words. It builds a story around them. Neural pathways strengthen, perception bends to accommodate the narrative, and then the body follows. For a long time, I kept visualizing the woman I wanted to become. I journaled about her, I spoke about her, I envisioned her life in detail, but then I looked closely at how I spent my days, and my actions weren't matching the identity that I was claiming. And I wasn't necessarily lying to myself, it was just a lack of understanding about how identity is built. And for me, the moment that really woke me up was when I joined a new gym and I was getting one of those body composition analysis, the one that breaks everything down, like your muscle, your fat, hydration, balance. And then while we were talking through it, I realized I had never really done this for my personal life. I've never paused long enough to look at my habits, my patterns, how my nervous system responds to certain situations with honesty and without fantasy or emotion. And I was like, if I want to get serious about becoming the woman that I keep dreaming about, then I need to become more conscious of my daily patterns, my environment, my inner thoughts, beliefs. And it's not to criticize, it's to cultivate a sense of awareness. It's about asking, where's my energy actually going? What do my habits say about what I believe is safe? Where am I leaking attention without even realizing it? Because neuroscience tells us that your identity is not something that you decide, it is what you repeat. Your brain builds identity through habits, thoughts, emotional responses, and your surroundings. So if your patterns don't change, your identity can't change. And it doesn't matter how beautifully you wrap the intention. And when I reflected on my life, I noticed the patterns that were keeping me stuck. I said I valued rest but glorified working myself to exhaustion. I wanted regulation but lived in a permanent sense of urgency. I wanted to receive with ease but would reject help or not even ask for it in the first place. Because my nervous system was still operating from an old identity, one that equated safety with productivity, control, and hypervigilance. And the brain is always going to choose what's familiar over what you desire. So that's why we feel so resistant towards change, even when we know that it's a positive change. Our habits are going to be one of the most honest reflections of our identity. They will tell the truth before words ever do. And again, the neuroscience tells us that repeated behaviors strengthen neural pathways through a process called synaptic plasticity. And this allows the brain to run those programs and patterns almost effortlessly. So this means that whatever we do consistently becomes what our brain recognizes as who we are. And over time, the brain conserves this energy by defaulting to these familiar loops, reinforcing beliefs and behaviors that feel safe and known, even if we consciously desire change. And that is why our habits are such an honest mirror, because they reveal the identity that our nervous system has practiced, embodied, and decided that it can trust. And when you do finally sit down to audit your habits, don't ask yourself, are they good or bad? Ask yourself, what identity are these habits reinforcing? Rushing in the morning taught my body to expect chaos. Skipping meals taught my body that nourishment was optional. Constant doing and stimulation taught my body that stillness is not safe. But I didn't try to overhaul my life, because building identity that is in alignment with your highest self is not going to be built through force or shaming yourself into changing. It's going to be built through consistency that feels safe in the body. So, shifting identity isn't just about motivation or willpower. It's going to be about gently retraining the brain through repeated experiences that signal safety in a new way of being. So, when a behavior is practiced enough times with emotional and physiological regulation, the brain starts to update its prediction of who you are. And eventually, the new habit stops feeling like effort and starts feeling more natural. And then I started to pay attention to my thoughts, not just the intentional ones, but the quiet, automatic ones that are running the show in the background. The ones that whisper, you should be further along by now, or you can't slow down, or you're going to lose momentum, or why are you not being productive right now? And to take it a little bit deeper, identity is often shaped around the beliefs that your brain perceives as safe because the nervous system is designed first and foremost to protect you. And from my past experiences, life taught me it is not safe to slow down. It is not safe to receive. It is not safe to be seen in your fullness. Our brain is constantly predicting outcomes based on these past experiences, especially through learning and memory processes that involve the amygdala, the hippocampus, and the prefrontal cortex. So, when a belief that once helped you avoid rejection, uncertainty, or emotional pain, the brain encodes this as a reliable pattern, reinforcing it through neural pathways that become easier to activate over time. So, in this way, our identity quietly shapes itself around what feels familiar and regulated to the nervous system, even if these beliefs no longer fully support who we are becoming. But with awareness and gentle repetition of new experiences, the brain's ability to reshape itself, rewiring thoughts, emotions, and behaviors through experience and attention, allow these definitions of safe to evolve. And this helps us to make space for a more expansive as well as a more aligned sense of ourself. So instead of trying to completely rewrite all of my thoughts, I just started to shift them a little bit to reflect the way that I wanted my body to feel. Because the brain doesn't really respond to words alone, but it will respond to experience. So we have to learn a new sense of safety. And how is that built? Through consistent rhythms, nourishing environments, and boundaries that are honored from even yourself. Your identity will start to shift when your inner world becomes a place of emotional safety. You don't become her by wanting, you become her by practicing. Because remember what we said earlier, identity is not a moment of decision. It is a daily rhythm that we commit to. Ask yourself occasionally, honestly and kindly, who am I practicing being every day? Not who you want to be, not someone you admire, but who your habits, thoughts, reactions are currently rehearsing. And let whatever comes to mind simply be information and not harsh criticism. We are not born into who we become. We build it quietly in every act, how we talk to ourselves, and the environments that we dwell in. So just think about this. When no one is watching, no audience, no platform, do your habits still align with the person you say you're becoming?